Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Best on Wellbeing podcast. Today, I would like us to explore the notion of uncaused joy. Is it real? Is that a real thing, this idea of uncaused joy, which seems to pop up over and over again in human history and tradition, especially religious and mystical traditions? This concept that joy can emerge without cause, without a reason to emerge, that we can experience joy for no particular reason. And I think that's an important thing, especially in Western society where through years of conditioning since we're little children, we are taught in a way, and I'm not disparaging this, it's just the way things are, but we do have a deep sense of belief that our joy will come from things being a certain way. That once things are just so, once we've achieved certain things, we have certain things, the right conditions are in place, then we can experience joy. And then it never seems to happen, or the next challenge comes along, and then it just this kind of recurrent frustration is like, I was almost there, and then this other thing started happening, and then the other thing happening. So we are taught to believe from an early age that joy will come from things, from situations, from external circumstances. And what religious and spiritual and mystical teachings tell us from many different angles is that the true source of joy, of well-being, of peace, comes entirely from knowing our true nature, to connecting deeper with ourselves in this moment, taps into a sort of state of joy that has no reason for being the way it is, what we call uncaused joy, joy without a cause. And it can almost seem like this fantastical idea, like when we talk about mysticism, mystical ideas, like that it's this grandiose sort of thing that only certain people, that people write about but isn't true. And I think it's important for us as a collective to understand that that is a real thing. It is the true source of well-being, is connecting to within ourselves on a deeper level and tapping into our true nature, which is naturally peaceful and joyful. And it doesn't mean to be where we have perfect external circumstances, we have perfect physical circumstances with our bodies or our minds, the perfect set of supplements, the perfect exercise routine, the perfect relationship. None of that needs to be in place in order for us to tap into this sense of deep joy. And so, for example, the Bible will say the peace that surpasses understanding, sort of experiencing a sense of peace that doesn't make sense. It's just feeling really peaceful. In ancient Hindu traditions, Advaita Vedanta talks about Satchitananda, this sort of idea of consciousness, existence, bliss, that when you deeply feel your existence, when you feel right now in this moment that you exist and it's all good and you're here right now, that a natural blissful state can emerge from that. And so that from this view, joy is not something to be created. Joy is allowed to emerge when the obstacles to it have been removed. Another analogy would be that we don't need to make the sun shine. It's the clouds that interfere with the sun's rays from coming through. So it's by removing the clouds that we allow the sunshine to come through, but we don't make the sunshine happen. And so our layers of thought, all the constant thinking of this me, the little wave that's separate from the ocean. We've talked a lot about the wave and ocean analogy, that the little wave has so many things to do today, all these things I got to take care of, and this person that's bothering me, and all these circumstances, all our attention is constantly taken up by the external circumstances of our lives. Whereas, and in that hope, that belief is that once we finally just get it right, then it's going to settle, And some of the tricks we've talked about, this idea of mental hygiene and these gratitude exercises and breathing exercises, is the idea to begin applying ourselves to turning within as the source of joy, turning within to this uncaused joy that does not need anything to emerge. It just needs to be allowed to shine through, if you will. And I would tell you that it is real. And I have experienced it in numerous sort of different situations in my life. And it came and it left. And it's not to say it's this perfect, it comes and goes. But so there was one time when I was traveling in India as a young man. It was my early 20s, and I didn't have a lot of money. So I traveled as cheaply as I could. I did go to all of these kind of ashrams and tried these meditations and yoga groups and all this sorts of stuff. And I was having a good time with that. I was like, yeah, it was cool. It was peaceful and all that stuff. But one time I took the bus, this cramped bus. It was packed with strangers because I was traveling by myself. I didn't have a phone. I had a couple books on me to read to pass the time, but it was darkness. It was dark. There was no light on the bus, and we were traveling overnight through the mountains. And so it was loud, it was packed, it was bumpy, and it was just not a great external circumstances to feel kind of very happy in that moment. I was kind of feeling a little grim. And I don't know exactly how it went down or recall exactly, but about 2 hours into the bus ride, just all of a sudden this very deep sense of joy and peace and calmness just kind of started just coming over me, where I felt really, really well. And I just couldn't understand what was happening to me. It was just like, I feel fantastic right now, but I'm in this little cramped bus that's bumpy and loud and hot. But for some reason I felt really, really good inside of myself. And then eventually it faded, and I kind of returned to my normal baseline. And that's would be how I describe when these things have happened again to me. It's not that they last forever, but they occur and then they kind of fade over time and then go back to a baseline. But the trap, but that told me that this thing is real, that you can touch something that is not dependent on circumstances, external circumstances, to feel really good. And I constantly forget this. I constantly forget that uncaused joy is right there to be accessed in this moment within myself by applying myself to letting go of all the thinking all the time, to just feel myself in this moment, to feel my existence on a deeper level, to begin the process of sensing the depth of the ocean rather than just seeing myself as the wave. And so I can forget this over and over, that if I can just have this correct circumstance, if I can just get to it happens to me all the time. Even the other day, I was just like, I got to take care of this. And then finally, when I get past this weekend, I'm going to be able to, relax. And then when I get there, and then I have this thing to take care of, and all these things to do. And yes, we need to honor our external lives. We need to take care of our responsibilities. We need to try to bring balance into our external lives when there's an imbalance. So all those things still apply. All those things are important. All those things need to be honored. But if we go our whole lives forgetting that the true source of well-being comes from inside, and not as some fancy, superfluous, fanciful thing. Oh yes, it's all within. It's like, no, it is the place to go to sense a joy that has no reason to be. It just is. The sun doesn't need a reason to shine. It just shines. And it's like, I was kind of caught up, and it's like, just the other day I was caught up, and all of a sudden it's just like, whoa. It's like, chill, bro. It's just like, just come back to yourself right now. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm just in this moment. Everything's fine. It's okay. I'm just in this moment, just existing right now. It's cool. So, and it wasn't this deep, profound thing, but it's just all of a sudden it's like everything felt lighter. And then external circumstances naturally go a lot better when we take care of the inner stuff. The inner work, or Eckhart Tolle calls it the inner purpose, is much more important than the outer purpose. The outer purpose needs to be honored, but if we only address the outer purpose, we'll never, ever get to this deep sense of contentment. We get there, and if we don't get there, there's no there. It's like, it's always now that we tap into it. If I connect with myself for 20 minutes, then eventually one day, and I do it every day, eventually I'll feel good. It's like, no, you just hang with yourself and gently remove the layers, the clouds that prevent the joyousness to come through. But if we only focus on the outer purpose, the outer work, and we don't take care of the inner work, then it prevents us from experiencing a deeper sense of well-being. The inner work is the inner purpose. The inner purpose is the purpose of the wave to connect with itself, to sense itself as the ocean. That is the inner purpose of everyone, to connect with ourselves on a deeper level. And going back to this idea of uncaused joy, this is not just a religious and mystical idea that has pervaded the literature. There are many books in the last 100 years that have been written about this by people who have lived through horrendous external circumstances. Okay, I cannot even fathom these things. I've been very fortunate, living in Canada, good family, all this stuff. But we're talking about some bad situations, terrible situations that people emerged out of those situations saying they were transformed, that they felt so peaceful, that they discovered that peace, that joyfulness in the midst of horrendously awful conditions. One recent example, I think the book was in 2006, called Left to Tell, Discovering God Amidst the Rwanda Holocaust by Immaculée Ilibagiza. And this woman was basically hidden in a small little bathroom, this tiny little cubicle for weeks, because people were trying to find her and kill her because of her ethnicity. And she was hidden by a pastor, and she experienced starvation and tremendous fear and being cramped and all these terrible conditions. And in the midst of that, she sort of turned within and started to pray a lot and read some Bible verses and pray over and over again. And then she explains that just something took over her, where she just felt this tremendous peace, this tremendous sort of sense of calm and forgiveness and joyfulness that emerged in the midst of terrible circumstances. Another example is this Buddhist monk, Palden Gyatso, who wrote books about his experience in being in a prison, a Chinese prison, where he was very mistreated, beaten and tortured and kept there for 33 years. And in the midst of that, describes frequently experiencing these deep sense of peace and calmness and just certain degree of inner well-being that was very profound, and forgiving his torturers and like really wild stuff. So another one is Eddie Hilesum, which was a young Jewish woman who was ended up dying in the concentration camps. But on the way, so she wrote a journal, like on her way to coming through the concentration camp systems, the Nazis during the Nazi Holocaust, the Jewish Holocaust at the hand of the Nazis. And she wrote a journal that was found afterwards. And she describes again that, obviously she had fear and this, but also she turned within herself during those experiences and describes these deep sense of peace and feeling like at one with all existence and experiencing a tremendous sense of well-being. So there's a lot of anecdotal evidence of people, and these are just a few. There are so many out there of people describing this, discovering a tremendous sense of inner well-being in the midst of terrible circumstances. Now, I'm not saying we need those circumstances to occur to experience well-being, but that is the point here, is that this uncaused joy is real. It exists. And if our entire sense of being joyful relies on this idea that it only occur or will occur when the external circumstances are just so, then we'll never experience a true sense of joy. It requires to turn within, to tap into our deeper nature, which, again, the traditions tell us our nature itself is peaceful and joyful, and we just have to remove the clouds that block that sun from shining. So just a little exploration today, folks, about the idea of uncaused joy. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. If you like it, please give me a like, a follow, a share, anything like that. It's always appreciated. I hope you have a good day. We'll see you next time.